Hello, fabulous Libra. Welcome to your horoscope for the month of May 2016. General focus. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. This month, we have got a powerful new moon taking place early in the month. And you add to that this new moon speaking in supreme harmony with Pluto and with a very powerfully placed Jupiter. And this to me, as I look at this, says money, money, money all over it, especially for you. In fact, there's lots of financial progress to be had now. And it isn't just the kind of progress that has to do with you earning more money, a rise in income, if you will, but rather it is you understanding how wealth happens and feeling yourself move towards greater wealth. So this is a chunk of money that looks very set to find you now, given this particular sky. So we're looking at grants, loans, bursaries, insurance payments, tax returns, any kind of health benefits or benefits in general that you qualify for, inheritances, commission payments. So all of this type of stuff. And it is a Mercury retrograde in the same part of the sky. So very likely the money that finds you now will either be based on a long-standing issue or a settlement that's been trying to happen, or will be based on something that you've, whether it's funding that you've tried to access. But also when I look at this, I think of how maybe you worked somewhere and you earned some commission and didn't realize it, and now it happens, it comes to you. Also, for a lot of people out there, very recently was tax season, so this could also be getting some good news on that front where it comes to the taxes that for a lot of the world would have recently, more or less recently, been filed. So this can be a time when some good news comes in on the tax front as well. So ultimately what this new moon is saying is new opportunities where it comes to chunks of money and feeling a sense of abundance in the universe, a sense of resourcefulness and feeling that the universe provides. When I see a sky like this, it does suggest that if there was something that you were previously told that you didn't qualify for, previously not approved for, and that is still something that you think you could benefit from, this would be a good time to go back, file an appeal or whatever the case may be, to see if actually maybe there is a way that you can access certain funding. What I also really like about this particular part of the sky, and considering these super harmonious conversations taking place, there's something to be said for finding the wealth within you. And I know it's not as glamorous. It doesn't always make people jump for joy in the immediacy, but in the bigger picture of your life actually does create more prosperity in the bigger picture, because you understand what that source of wealth is within you, that thing within you that you can trust, that you can count on to be with you through any circumstance and to help you to improve just about any circumstance as well. Well, this same part of the sky is being lit up with this new moon. And what this suggests is that you are going to come into contact with this sense of understanding what that force is for you. If you felt that you've let it be latent for a little while, if you felt like sort of floating in the air, kind of a lack of a sense of purpose or direction, this is going to be your chance to start and tap into that energy that much more consciously. And what I also really like about this is ultimately this is the universe letting you know that you are provided for. Financially, yes, but on more personal levels as well. And the universe letting you know that you are cared for by people in general, and that they can support you in a whole variety of ways. And one of the more important ways is emotionally. And sometimes when we have this powerful a sky in this particular area of life, it is where you least expected it that a real voice of support and encouragement comes through, and that ends up being tremendously healing. It allows you to feel that much more like you're ready to move that much more clearly and powerfully into your future. As we move further into the month, we will have a rare first full moon back to back, 28 and a half days apart from another full moon that is in the same area of the sky. And for you, this part of the sky has to do with siblings, cousins, neighbors, mainly, mainly those types of people. Now, when we have a full moon happening, normally you get one full moon once a year per area of life. So it's different now that we're having not only Mercury retrograde season, which is about, sort of going over old ground. At the same time, we're going to be having, at least the first full moon will happen, still under the wider umbrella of a Mercury retrograde season. So this particular first full moon is happening at the very beginning of its respective sign and the second towards the very end of its respective sign. So what that suggests, and when I see this, it does suggest that a matter related to one of these people, siblings, cousins, and neighbors, may arise now. And it may feel like things are coming up for your awareness. It may feel in the immediacy like, okay, we have our answers, we're finding our conclusions. However, chances are very likely that it will not be the final, okay? And chances are you may actually have to wait until we get to the later part of next month to find your full resolutions of anything that does arise now. Now, I am going to say this particular full moon, not the next one, but this particular one, is having somewhat of a connection with Neptune. So it's what astrologers will call, if you're a student of astrology, it's a wide orb square with Neptune. And when I see that, it does suggest that whether it's you that is feeling it, whether it's deliberate or not, there might be some lack of clarity with this, okay? And sometimes it's not obvious, right? And sometimes it's not intentional. A lot of times it's not intentional. And sometimes it's not even accurate. But what I mean by this is, if you are trying to figure out your way forward in a matter related to whether it's a request or something you're trying to resolve, where it comes to one of these types of people in your life, siblings, cousins, neighbors, one of these types of people's in your life, you may not have the whole picture. Things might not be exactly as you necessarily hope. And, I have to say this, forgive me, I'm always going to be direct with you, right? This can also be a measure of dishonesty from one of these types of people. So when I see a sky like this, it does suggest to me that, look, if one of these people comes up to you and says, I really, really need a amount of money, can you please come through for me? It may be that they actually do need the money, but it's up to you to decide where it is that you are going to be with that, right? It might not be as much as they are presenting to you. It might not be entirely for the reasons that they are presenting for you. Still, even with that, you can decide how you're going to move forward and what feels right given your circumstances. This also can be, I gotta say, if there are any kind of issues or concerns that come up in regards to neighbors right about now, which isn't easy, especially if you live in a major city center. Neighbors tend to be pretty close, right? So when issues happen with neighbors, especially things like noise, and also I gotta say, especially in the second part of the month with this full moon and the way that, as I said, all the tech talk just a moment ago, this is loud parties or just a lot of drinking. Let me just put it out there. So there could be some of that happening as well with a sky like this. Ultimately, it's about you deciding what works, what doesn't. But what I do think is that once we get to the later part of next month, if any issues should arise, they will likely not be permanent and they will likely resolve by the time we get to the late part of June. And of course, I will be here to talk about it then. Regardless of how your situation works out, ultimately, I do think, especially where it comes to these types of people, there's a little bit of a test to your compassion and the limits to your compassion. And there's this sacred lesson, right, that I think that part of what Neptune is meant to teach us is that, yes, compassion is one of them, but also that there is tremendous value in acceptance, and acceptance in particular of what you don't have control over. And I think that a lot of different planets teach us this lesson in different layers and in different ways. Mars certainly Mars retrograde is teaching us this now as well, to identify what you can change, what you can't, and the wisdom to know the difference, as they say. Saturn and Pluto teach us this as well, but they teach us this more through, I gotta say, they teach us this more through pain and understanding where change needs to happen. But Neptune teaches us this lesson a little bit differently. Neptune teaches us this lesson in order that we may be stronger in faith and stronger in interconnection, stronger in our sense of empathy for everyone and everything for that matter. And when we have a full moon placed like this, it does say that look at the people around you, the people who are your peers, the people who live around you in your own space, or may not necessarily exactly in your own space, but near your own space, who surround your space. And to understand that there are their own journeys that are very complex and have their own interesting twists and turns that are equal to just about anyone else. And in that, regardless of how it's being expressed in ways that might be a little inconvenient to you, there is something poetic and there is a certain perfection that is being played out even in that. And what I love about this month for you, of course, is that there is absolute gains to be made. There are changes to be made on a lot of levels, on a levels of heart, on a levels of spirit, on a level of psyche, where you start to understand how abundant the universe truly is. And as a result of that deepening faith, you will find that abundance has a way of finding you now. Visit Amazon.com to learn about my book, Astrology, realized in English and Spanish, and shop my website, NadiyaShah.com, for exclusive The Universe is Wise and Loving merchandise and my signature jewelry line, Astro Fabulous Jewelry. Enjoy.